G'day everyone. Today we're going to be reviewing Route 2 of Nier Automata. If you haven't seen Route A of Nier Automata yet, take this moment, go watch the video or go play through Route A, and then come back and watch the rest of this video. There's going to be spoilers ahead for Nier Automata, Nier, and DrakenGuard 3, as well as Nier Anime. Route B in Nier Automata is a largely different affair, but with a very similar plotline to Route A. A lot of the stuff in Route B, I'm just going to say the same thing that happened in Route A happens in Route B, but I'm going to be focusing more on the specific differences that happen, such as the starting section where you literally start as a machine. This machine, he moves around and he wants to help his brother, and he wants to help his brother by giving him oil to repair his brother, which leads to Meaningless saying no matter how much oil you give him, he will not come back to life. To me, I find this a very important note for the entirety of Route B. A lot of characters will end up taking ultimately meaningless actions, but to them have a lot of meaning. Such as this robot trying to bring his brother back to life by chucking oil on him because it's the only thing that he knows to do. We then get control of 9S proper, and we are instantly called by our new operator, well, 9S's operator, 210, who tells us that we have to head to our flight unit and aid 2B, who is the remaining survivor of the battle units, come take out the Goliath in the area. We of course can choose to go the complete wrong way, intentionally or not intentionally, depending on how you're playing, and 9S then gets the lovely ending of he went to continue investigating machines, and that was it. Because he never met 2B, never did any of the rest, and it just ended right there. Another joke ending, but you know, one of the more quainter ones, but also annoying because you literally just, you went the wrong way, and that's it. Which is very similar to a lot of the endings in this game, where you happen to go the wrong way or press the wrong button, and it goes, ending. And you're like, oh, that was an ending? Shit. Of course, what you're meant to do is head towards the flight unit after kicking down a ladder to gain access to it. We then fly through a different corridor, which seems much more simplistic than what 2B has to go through, and we just fight enemies in the flight unit. And this is just because 9S is supposedly doing something while 2B is going through the factory, and this is what they decided 9S was doing. He was flying through a giant pipe. They do this twice in this prologue, but this is just the first time. He then meets up with 2B, and we have the same line as before, with 9S being a little piece of shit. And we get actually new gameplay, and we start to understand the fundamental differences between 9S and 2B, which is hacking. 9S has the ability to hack instead of having a heavy attack. When you're playing 2B, you have your light attack and your heavy attack. When you're playing 9S, you just have an attack and you have your hack. And that's it. This hack is a mini game where you hold down what was your heavy attack button to initiate the hack. It gives a little fill up bar. With some enemies it's longer, some enemies it's shorter, and depending on the complexity of the enemy, such as is this a big enemy that's harder, or is this just your run-of-the-mill enemy that you would just kill in 2 seconds as 2B, it gives you a different complexity of hacking. This hacking minigame will get more expansive as the game goes on, but for now let's just look at the basics. The basics are, you are a ship and you have to destroy the ball. Now we saw this back when 2B was fighting the opera singer, and it was very protracted and wasn't really a huge thing, but you notice that there was a ball in the center, you had to dodge shots coming at you, you had 3 hits that you can survive, and once you killed the ball, the enemy you would succeed the hack. 9S is in a facility which is meant to be the power core of the foundry, where the Goliath is being constructed and the other machines are being constructed, And 9S's goal is to hack the various power cores to shut down production of the facility in an attempt to stop the production of more Goliath units. This is largely successful, but it is essentially just a tutorial on how to play 9S's hacking game, because it wants you to do the hacking game quite a bit. Every time you get to a power core, you have to do the hacking, and then you have to do a mini game. And the mini games with the core hacking usually required you to do a path hack. There are 3 different hacks in this game. I'm going to call one a path hack, one's just your basic hack, and the other one's your advanced hack. Advanced hack is your big enemies, your basic hack is your basic enemies, and your line hack is where you do this more shoot the black ball on walls that are in front of you so you can get to the ball at the end of the line. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it's how I'm going with it. The line hack will get the more interesting gameplay in the future, whereas the advanced hack and the basic hack are always going to stay largely the same. After all the power cores have been disabled, 9S then rushes to 2B's side because apparently 2B is in a fight with a Goliath. And when this is happening, we then go through our second pipe. It's just as boring as the first pipe, but it is meant to be showing what 9S was doing while 2B was doing what 2B was doing. And we then get the cutscene that we got when 2B was fighting the Goliath, where 9S sacrifices himself to defend 2B and lands on top of the Goliath. Here's where we get another change. Instead of going back and controlling 2B and attacking the giant Goliath in the flight unit, we stay with 9S, where he has a broken leg and the only control he has is his pod unit itself. You now have to play a mini tower defense game where you're defending 9S's body from slow machines coming towards you. This is a largely easy encounter. At least it shows they're trying to differentiate 9S's gameplay from 2B's gameplay when they can and how they're going to do that. While we're defending ourselves, we also hack into the Goliath that 2B is fighting, allowing us to destroy various parts of the Goliath through hacking, eventually giving 2B the arm to whack the Goliath, and then 2B goes in for the kill. And of course, like before, the 2 black boxes have to be connected for destruction. After we're back in the bunker, we get another very comical difference between 2B and 9S's gameplay. Whereas before, we had from 2B's perspective getting maintenance done to him, we now get 9S's perspective where he does maintenance to himself, he then wakes up and goes towards 2B and then helps 2B with her maintenance. And we get to see all of the inputs that we did in the previous route get done again through a video playback, where we don't have to press a single thing, we just see what we did in the past. This is very interesting, and they do this 1 or 2 times throughout the game where they show our user inputs from a 9S perspective, but this is the more interesting moment where it happens. 9S and 2B then continue on with the same story from Route A. We have to head to the Resistance base and continue on with the storyline. Because Route B and Route A are very similar core story-wise, I'm not going to go through the game chronologically. Instead, I'm going to go through side quests that I found interesting. I'm going to put them in an interesting order to me. So, first off, I want to talk about a mistake I made in my previous review for Route A, where I was talking about when you level up, you get more plug-in chips. That was completely wrong. 100% wrong. It'd be nice if that was the case, because I think that would make a better curve to your character, but, you know, progression curve that is. Instead, what you do to get more plug-in chips is you talk to this shop person. There's 3 in the world. There's 1 in the bunker, there's 1 in a coliseum, and there is 1 in the main Resistance base. And this person allows you to upgrade your pod by using parts that are incredibly annoying to farm, and you have to really want to upgrade your pods if you want to farm this shit. And also here, you can just literally buy plug-in chip upgrades, which allows you to put more plug-in chips into your plug-in chip area. Minor mistake, but I feel I should point it out because I made the mistake. And it's just what you do. Now I'm going to talk about side quests, specifically Android side quests in the 9S, and some of these were 2B Androids, but we're going to talk about them here. First and foremost, we have this Android that wants us to go to locations where these pictures are and then describe these locations back to the Android. And these 3 locations are one's in the forest, one's in the desert, and one's in the amusement park. The amusement park is pretty easy to get to, it's just straight in the open. The forest one is also pretty easy to get to, it's a little bit off the path, but you end up going there anyway, just out of curiosity, pretty easy to get. But the desert one is quite complicated to get, because you have to go all the way to the other end of the desert biome from the entrance. And going there, you can't go directly beeline there because there's a storm in the way. So you have to go around the storm and eventually end up in an oasis. And I was confused because I thought this oasis was actually the oil field at the entrance of the desert area, but it's just at the oasis at the end. At the oasis, there is a random android who I believe will have a greater significance when we get to playing A2. But right now, it's just an android sitting there for literally no reason. But this is where we get the final picture, and once we have all the pictures, we return them to the android. The android realizes that these were in fact not pictures, but memory files. And now that they've been described to her correctly, she realizes she got rid of her memories because her loved one died, and these were the main memory files of her loved one. And now that she has her memories back, she is back to being depressed because she got rid of those memory files to stop being depressed. And now she doesn't know why she wants to live in this world anymore. This is a common theme. Androids doing bad shit or getting rid of their memory because it's painful, and then they make bad mistakes for these. Next android I'm going to talk about is an android in the main city ruins who asks us to find plug-in chips for him. And we find these plug-in chips and we get a message from command that tells us these plug-in chips were apparently from 9S battle type androids from the Yohai units, and they are confidential and should not be given to anyone. So we're given a choice: do we give these chips to this man in the city ruins or not? Initially I don't give them to him because I wanted to see if there was anyone else I could give them to get a different storyline. There isn't, so I just give them to the guy, and he buggers off and says, I will let you meet my family later, which is strange because androids don't have families, so they're not meant to have emotions. We later meet this guy again in the desert, and he introduces us to his family, and the family is a Yohai Unit 9S that looks remarkably similar to our 9S, but it is different because he has black hair. He is very happy to be this person's child, but that's about it. We leave him again and we get a email in our inbox, and in this inbox it tells us and describes the situation that happens to this person. The email reads, recently a search order was issued for a Yohai member who was in possession of secret information chips. As this individual has been found, the order is now withdrawn. As a further note, the member in question has been killed by a machine lifeform. However, our search team still managed to recover the information chips. They also located the corpse of another resistance member nearby. We are currently investigating these two issues are connected. Basically what happened, they were hanging out just outside of the machine housing complex in the desert, and obviously the child ran off from the parent for whatever reason and got attacked by the machines and killed because he did not have the combat necessary to defend himself. The resistance member then attempted to save this son of his, and it ended poorly and he died as well. It's a sad story, but it's just another story in Nier. Talking about sad stories, we have two androids who are currently living in the machine village of Pascal, and they tell us that they need to leave, but to leave, they need parts from us. If we would help them, they would then move away from the machine village and try to escape across the sea. We give them the parts and they head towards the ocean zone. In their place, we get some machines that also remark that they would also like to escape across the sea. Not really important, but it's nice to see that the machines want to share the same dreams that the androids do. At least in this village anyway. We head to the ocean zone and we find them again. They tell us that they need 10,000 G so that they can pay someone to get them across the sea. We then get the money for them where we tell them here's the money and they go thank you. We leave the zone, we wait for a load screen and we come back to the zone and they have been separated. And we find one of them almost broken down near where they were before. He tells us that they were betrayed by their person that was going to take them across the sea, and they have no idea where the other person is. They give us a part of their system knowledge so that we can scan for where the other android is. We find the other android at the amusement park, where we meet Pascal, who helps us to repair this android. This android then gets very tired of escaping suddenly and says that we need to reset our memories so that we can return to resistance base without causing any more commotion and return to being just basic resistance androids. After we reset one of the android's memories, the female android then remarks, "Haha, thank you for doing that for me. No, do not reset my memory. I've reset this guy's memory 6 times. He keeps failing me, and I have to keep resetting him until he does it right." Which shows us the frightening side of women, as Pascal remarks. And also that none of these androids or machines that we really meet are in any way good. They all have their own selfish self-interests that they are instead seeking. And the final android side mission tale I'm going to tell you is that of the red coat android. We find this android in the apartment complex near where we first entered the city ruins. She is a little bit out of the way, but if you find her, she tells us that she has a pod from an android that she was friends with who is now dead, and she doesn't quite remember what happened to that android. She asks us to hack the pod to see if any of her memories are within the pod, or at least enough information that she could rebuild her own memories. We get an image memory file of an android in a red coat standing over the other android's dead body. She bids us, please could you find the murderer of this android, as that android was her friend. The only lead we have to go on is the fact that this android has a red cloak. We go to the resistance base and we find an android that has a red cloak. We accuse this android, but not really. We just ask, hey, where'd you get this red cloak? And he tells us that he got it from his girlfriend. This girlfriend happens to be none other than Jackass. Yes, Jackass, the explosives expert android. We head towards the desert where Jackass usually is living, or at least residing. And we meet a different android there who says Jackass has gone to investigate some cave systems nearby. We head into these cave systems, inside of which we find a hackable door, and inside this hackable door is a hackable chest that gives us a weapon. One of the 4 unique weapons you can get in this game, and we notice that this weapon is remarkably similar to the weapon that 9S uses. Not really important right now, we're moving on. Further in the cave system, we meet Jackass, and we accuse Jackass, and we said, did you murder this android? She goes, no, I got this red cloak from another android. Well, I didn't get it, I was kind of like forced upon me. We're confused by this, and she then describes the android to be remarkably similar to the android we just met in the ruins. So we head back to the ruins and we tell that android what we found out about the murder situation, and that was mostly a dead end. They ask us again to hack the pod to see if there is any more information in that pod that could lead to who the killer actually was. We do so, and we get another memory image, and it turns out the person who was wearing the red coat the whole time was the very same android we were talking to. This android finally realizes their memories and tells us that they deleted their own memories because they were tired of being a betrayer type android. Their sole mission in the Yohai units is to befriend android resistance members who are against the cause and murdering them. and over and over and over. She then tells us, do we need any friends that we need to kill? Because we will kill them. We kill our friends over and over again. It's a sad, sad story, and it is very on the nose that it is called the Red Coat Android. Well, Red Cloak, but Red Coat means a person who betrays their own unit. They are a Red Coat. Now that we've got the Android side quests out of the way, it's time to talk about the machine side quests. But before that, I want to talk about the various hacking abilities that 9S has the ability to do. If you attempt to hack a machine without it detecting your presence, you get access to 3 different options. Option number 1, destroy the machine. This acts just like a normal hack where you hack to the machine and just destroys it. Option number 2, subjugate the machine. This makes the machine an AI ally for you for a brief period of time. It acts much like the Android bodies that you can reactivate to be your AI buddy for a little bit. Option number 3, you get the ability to remote control the machine. And this lets you literally take control of the machine. Instead of controlling 9S, you are now controlling the machine. This can be used in a Coliseum, which is a machine brawl Coliseum where various machines fight each other. And you can fight as machines by hacking more machines unaware to give you more machines that you can access in this arena. It's quite hard and it requires to have a lot of levels to scale your machines up. This is where one of the plugin chips called Hijack increases the level of your machines compared to your own level. So if you have like Hijack 6, you add +6 to the machine's level when you hijack it. I'm not going to talk about Coliseums in this video. I'm just going to mention that there are 3 of them. We've seen one in the first video where we're talking about the Sand People, where it was just a battle arena where you had to fight with various conditions. The other 2 Coliseums are one, which is the Machine Coliseum I just described, where you take control of a machine and then you fight other machines as the machine. And the other Coliseum is an Android machine sort of hybrid Coliseum. Except for the caveat for this Gambler's Coliseum is that you cannot use items. I'm not going to talk about the storylines in these various Coliseums and how they relate to Nier Replicant and Nier, but I'm just going to say that they do have a connection. The first machine side quest I want to talk about is Golden Machines. In the open world, there are several golden machines that you meet, and they have consciousness much more than the rest of the machines you come in contact with. Specifically, they have a small machine and a large machine. Both of them are golden, and the small machine treats the large machine as its family, and it gets very upset when you destroy its family, and then when you destroy it, it gets upset again as well. In the city ruins, there are ones with giant arms and a small machine. In the desert just before the housing complex, there is a golden tank and a small machine. And in the ocean zone, it is another giant armed machine and a small machine. When you defeat the final small machine in the ocean zone, it has some very interesting dialogue. He remarks how we killed them all and we have left him alone and he will seek vengeance, but he then immediately gives up on his vengeance because he says, I would have killed myself after I got the vengeance anyway, so you might as well just let me die right now. I would have achieved the exact same thing whether I killed you or not. Very interesting, very meta. They're very hard fights. By hard, I mean they have larger HP bars. They're not actually that much harder to beat. They do more damage, of course, but it is mostly just their larger HP bar that causes issues. The next machine I'm going to talk about is Robo Sensei. I talked about him a little bit in the first Route A review. We now finish him off in Route B because we're a higher level and because hacking is incredibly overpowered. It does lots of damage regardless of your level compared, like say you're 20 levels below your opponent, it still does enough damage that you can just keep hacking over and over again without any real consequences. Because the hacking minigame is, while in some cases possible to lose, they are very repetitive and very easy to master. Once you learn the patterns of the various arcade battles that you have to do, you just memorize how to do them and you do them the correct way every single time. There are a few that I definitely struggle with, but if you fail, you lose a small amount of HP, much less than you would if you got hit twice in a row by foolhardily trying to fight with a weakened melee weapon. Instead, hacking gives you from a distance, which means the enemy can't counterattack you straight away if you fail, giving you a chance to heal and various other things, as well as the ability to dodge because you're so far away. We have to take parts back to this Robo Sensei several times, and he gets bigger and bigger and bigger until he is a giant robot with thick beefy arms and has very slow movement. He then quickly changes after this into becoming a small robot again, but with much nimbler yet strong strikes. This is his final form. As we are beating his final form, he decides that, no, I'm gonna keep fighting even after I lose. And he gets all his HP back and fights you again, much like a good old Dark Souls boss. Unfortunately, I'm hacking, so it's a fairly repetitive and easy fight. I just literally hack, and he dies, so... Still interesting, he does spout some nonsense, and that's about it for Robo Sensei. Another fun machine side quest, which we could have done in 2B, is the Speedster side quest. This is a flying machine that really believes he is the fastest thing on Earth, and he challenges us to race. The first race is relatively easy if you have movement speed plug-in chips. You can just outrun them. The second race, you need to have max movement speed chips, plus you need to understand the layout of the course a little bit to be more optimized. And then the final race is actually quite a hard race. It took me several tries of trying to work out what was the best route to get to the ending. And then once I worked out the best route, I had to work out how to make my character faster, even though I had max movement speed equipped with my plug-in chips. I realized that if you just dodge constantly, it is faster than running. I'm pretty sure if I didn't have any movement speed chips, I could still beat him just by spamming dash. And I spam dash on the left hand side and I eventually beat him. And then once I beat him, he gets very upset and goes, well, I guess I'm not the fastest thing on Earth. This sucks. I'm leaving. And then he kills himself. And of course the judge adjudicator just next to us waving a flag blows up for no reason as well. Very comical. Now we're going to get to some of the more interesting machine side missions. One is the little girl machine. Basically, a machine in Pascal's village says that her sister went to the desert to find a dinted plate to repair herself. And because she couldn't leave because she was injured, and now she's worried about her sister that went to the desert, and we should go find her and help her get home. We meet this little sister, and it turns out to be a much bigger robot than the little robot we met in Pascal's village. She is very afraid, very much like a little girl would be, and has to timidly walk around the desert because she is lost. We guide her back out of the desert, and she asks us some very peculiar yet funny questions throughout the journey. Here are a few snippets that happened.
降水量の減少のせいで植生が失われて、それに従って土壌が変化し、土壌っていうのは地面にある土のことだよ。土ってすごいんだね。風はどこから吹くの？それは気温や気圧の変化がっていうか、確かに風ってどこから吹いてくるんでしょうか。哲学的な問いでもありますね。ね、トゥビ。
私に聞かない。
それは、いや、機械生命体もアンドロイドも子供は作ることはできなくて。トゥビー。
そんな声で言われても、私は助けられない。
早く行こう。ほら、お姉さん待ってるよ。
Isn't it just the greatest? I enjoy it very much. Next, we're going to talk about another comedy machine. As you notice, a lot of these machine missions have a tinge of comedy to it, whereas the androids are just downright depressing. This machine is the shut-in machine, or the neat machine as if you would, and he loves to lock himself in his room. The mother is very concerned about this machine being locked in and asks us to hack our way through the door to free him. We of course do this, and we find out that the machine was just afraid of the outside world, especially of a girl who happened to be charming, according to this machine. The machine then locks himself in the room again, and mother asks us to free it again, and we find out the machine, even though he got over his fears of the world, he was afraid of what he would also be doing. That's not right. What was it? I forget what the second time was anyway. It was very vague and silly, something about self-confidence I think it was. Finally, he locks himself in the room again, but this time he wasn't locking himself in the room because he was afraid of the world or he didn't have self-confidence. He was locking himself in the room because he realized that his true purpose in life was to live in this room. Yes, he decided that he was going to be a neat come hell or high water, and this was his goal. And his mother remarks, very funny, at least he has a goal now and he can strive to achieve that goal. The final comedy machine robots that we have is this robot who always wants the lower value trinket. We meet a group of 3 or 4 robots in the place where we found the strange robot in Route A with 2B, and this robot constantly wants the lower value coin, and the other machines are making fun of this machine. This machine always wants the lower value trinket out of the 2 trinkets that is offered. The other machines make fun of this machine, saying that it's a stupid machine for always wanting the lower value trinket. We then hack this machine to try and work out what's going on with this machine, and we find out that the hacking is incredibly complicated. This is actually one of the more difficult hacks in the game, as it is very strangely laid out. After we hack and beat this machine, the machine tells us, alright, you caught me, I'm actually a super smart machine. I chose the lower value because that way they'll keep offering more coins of lower value to me, and then I'll get more coins than I ever would if I chose the higher value coin, because they keep offering me the lower coins over and over again, and eventually I get more coins than was the value of the big coin that I would have gotten once. You caught me, but please let me continue my scam. He's got a good hustle, this machine, I tell ya. He's wily. Now the final machine side quests that I'm going to talk about are these various machines throughout the city ruins that do not fight you and seem to be contemplative, looking out over a massive ledge. The first machine gives us this sort of dialogue. The second machine gives us this sort of dialogue, and while we're hacking the second machine, we get a warning that our own files are being corrupted. And finally, the third machine that we hack jumps off the edge after spouting some nonsense. We then hop off the ledge after it, because it's fun, and obviously suicide is bad. If you have suicidal thoughts, please contact someone, blah blah blah, you understand. And at the bottom of the pit, we get a plugin chip that gives us +6 hijacking plugin. Interesting, but in the end it's just about the contemplation of these robots. And that's about it for the machine side quests and the android side quests. I definitely spent a lot more time doing the side quests in the Route B than I did Route A, because, well, I knew that Route C is very different to Route A or B. It's time to talk about Emil. Those who don't know who Emil is, it's the Yoko Taro face. It's the main face of most of Nier, you know, it's the face, the smiley face. And his story is quite a complicated and interesting one. His side story is rather simple though. His side story is you free him and he allows you access to the forest zone, but after you meet him as a shopkeeper, you then head back to the shopping center where you freed him, and you find a lunatic and he instigates the quest. The quest of which is to find all the Lunar Tears. There's one in each zone, and they are pretty easy to find. I'll show them all. I'm not going to show the maps where they are, but you'll find them. They're pretty obvious. There's one in the amusement park, there's one in the ocean zone, there's one in the forest zone, there's one in the desert. At each Lunar Tier spot, he gives you a little bit more of his backstory, but I'm going to just tell it all in one go. Once you've given all 5 tiers, once you've shown him all 5 Lunar Tiers, he gives you the key to the basement. I say that because it might as well be like the key to the basement from Attack on Titan. And the basement is in the shopping center where you first met Emil and the first Lunar Tier. When you go into this elevator using the elevator key, it reveals a cabin. And in this cabin is a bed of flowers and a shack. This shack is specifically Nier's shack from Nier. When you enter this area, Emil is waiting for you there, and he finally tells you his full story. His full story is he was a weapon to adapt to any circumstance to win, which means that he can survive an incredibly long life, as he has, and also has use of various magical abilities. He doesn't show any of that in this stage. He may show it in later routes, but right now he's just a shopkeeper. And a very good shopkeeper. He gives the best plug-in chips, but they are very expensive and they're not usually worth buying because you end up finding them from Quest or wherever else. His story then goes on that he was here when the humans were here, and when the humans were dying and the desert was taking over the earth, he was there. Eventually, the aliens came, and it's unclear if the humans were still alive when the aliens came or not. This point will be cleared up later on in this review. And in order to protect the Earth, he fought against the aliens. And he could not do this alone, and there was no humans to aid him. So he decided that he would split and clone himself, much like Double from My Hero Academia. Very much like Double from My Hero Academia, he cloned himself so many times he lost track of which one was even the original Emil. And as he kept cloning himself, he started to lose parts and parts of himself, and the most important part that he lost was all of his memories, except for that he had to protect the Earth. He regains all his memories, of course, by us showing him the Lunar Tears. We ask him where is the original Emil, and he regards, well, we don't know, essentially. Which heavily implies that there are, or could be, various other Emils out there. That is about it for Emil's story, at least for right now. You'll notice that the backing audio for this part is a song not in Nier Automata. It's actually a song from Nier. It's Kaine's escape song. It's one of the best songs that they've made, and it is very fitting considering the location that we're in, with Kaine's shack and Kaine's Lunar Tears. Now I got absolutely no idea how to tell this next section. It's meant to be talking about these storybooks that show up throughout the Route B and how they describe to the encounters that you happen to have, but it's all extremely vague. So I think the best way to do it is to play each storybook for you and then do my best to explain its meaning. So we'll start with the first one.
遠い昔、山が噴火しました。噴火の火の中から神様が現れました。神様は機械たちにこう言いました。意識を、痛みを、喜びを、悲しみを、怒りを、羞恥を、孤独を、未来を、生きる意味を。
Now this first one is the most confusing out of the entire lot, but from what I can personally work out, it is describing the consciousness of the machines coming to life. such as consciousness and humanity come to life, and these are the core foundations of fear and yet hope for every single creature in existence, including the machines. The bit about the volcano is interesting because you can sort of say that Adam and Eve are birthed from a volcano because they come out of a incredibly hot magma of all these machines clustered together. But it's a bit of a stretch, and it only vaguely makes sense that they would be the gods, considering how much control they have over their surroundings. The next storybook is a lot more interesting.
機械は見つけました。それを機械は宝物と呼んでいました。宝物の形はみんな違いました。宝物の形はみんな違いました。
And it is describing what we hold dear. And it says that various machines hold various things dear. Some of them hold jewels dear, some of them hold family dear, some of them hold parents dear, some of them hold children dear. And specifically, it hones in on a machine with a jewel, and the heart jewel of that. And we go into the opera singer boss fight, which is the machine that has a broken heart. All it wanted was to be acknowledged by a certain machine. We'll talk about who the certain machine is a little bit later, but we're going to talk specifically about this encounter. Throughout the fight with the opera singer, when we clear each stage of health bar, we get a weird flashback. In Route A, these were just very fragmented flashbacks at the very end of the fight, where we got to see a giant robot lifting their hand towards a robot with a top hat. We see the same thing, except for we have a small machine robot reaching their hand upwards to the top hat, and we get some text dialogue. It reads as, "I know I must become more beautiful. I will start adding lots of endorments to make me look." We then head to the next cutscene where the robot with the top hat and the opera singer opposite. The opera singer is known as Simone. "I have accessorized my beauty with parts of my machine friends. I am more beautiful now than I ever was. So, will you love me?" We then go to a black screen of text, and I'll be playing it throughout this, but I'm going to paraphrase it as much as possible. The story of Simone is she was a simple machine that wanted to become beautiful so another machine would notice her. I'm going to now reveal who this other machine was. It's Jean-Paul, who is a side quest that we can do, where Jean-Paul has a lot of followers because he has a strange philosophy, and they are attracted to this philosophy, and they want to get Jean-Paul's attention by giving Jean-Paul trinkets. And as each machine gives a trinket, Jean-Paul does not approve of these trinkets, and then eventually we give the bad written news to all of these machines. They all said, "It doesn't matter, we still like Jean-Paul." Jean-Paul then flees and leaves behind a message, and the message approximately is, "I only ever cared for one jewel, and it is gone from me." And this one jewel comes up in Simone's text, where she describes her history about trying to become beautiful, and she finds a specific jewel that she thinks she would look beautiful with, and shows it to the machine, but the machine rejects her. She then goes crazy and starts devouring machines to look beautiful, and then devouring androids to look beautiful, until she becomes the monster and becomes crazy, just screaming, "Look at me, look at me, why won't you look at me, look at me." The next storybook won't happen until we get the story of the Forest King. And the story of the Forest King is actually rather simple. Long ago, in the forest, there was a giant machine with arms who said, "We are going to turn this place into a kingdom. It is hard, it is humid, and it is wet. These are not ideal climates for a machine. This will be our kingdom." Then, hundreds of years later, the big machine is dying because of all the humidity has burned its parts. They transferred the Forest King into a small baby machine, and they say, "We will give this baby machine all our love, and when it grows up, it will be the new Forest King." This same Forest King baby was the machine that we saw on Route A that was killed by A2. Just before we get to the throne room and the events of Route B and A happen, we find out that they are confused that the Forest King has not grown at all in hundreds of years. They don't realize that machines do not grow. They have completely forgotten that machines are stagnant. They only are what they are. And of course then A2 kills the King of the Forest. We then get the storybook, after which and the storybook describes a story of a group that will stay together regardless of war, famine, strife, or pain. They all remain together as a family forever and ever and ever. It's actually one of the kinder stories. And finally, we have A2. We need to talk about A2 and her full story. In Route A, I touched a little bit on A2, that we didn't really know who they were. We could have gone deeper by following the Resistant Leader quest. The Resistance Leader says that they remember A2, but they're not sure if it's the same A2 unit. And we have to go find out data on A2 to verify this. So we head to the foundry and we pick up various bits of data here and there about A2. We then bring this data back to the Resistance Leader and they tell us that A2 was indeed the same number 2 unit that they were thinking of, and that they were the same type of unit as 2B. And she remarks that they fought together in a war called the Pearl Drop. This is a reference to Pearl Harbor, but it is also an event that happened in the game. So we know that A2 found out something during this event, and that is why they went rogue. We then have the Leviathan fight, which is from 9S's perspective. It is largely the same, except for when we have to shoot the mortar into the Leviathan's mouth, we have to hack A2 in order for her to aim properly. It is very simple and kind of pointless, but it is still nice to have at least some bit of gameplay different there. We then leave 2B to continue fighting against the Leviathan while we go get the missiles. We then fly a long way, absurdly long way considering where we were originally and how far away the Leviathan is from the coast, but that's how it is. It has to be timed up to how long 2B is fighting from Route A. We hack the missiles and then we guide the missiles all the way back to the Leviathan, and the same thing occurs where 9-2 blacks out and is blown completely away. And here we get our final storybook. The storybook of the Leviathan. The Leviathan is probably the saddest storybook because he was a child machine, quote unquote child, that didn't know how to control his body. And because he was so large and so powerful, he kept accidentally damaging the things around him. And because of this, they banished him to the bottom of the sea, where he was alone and he could not feel any more lonely. At the bottom of the sea, he called out for his mother over and over again, but his mother never heard his call. Very sad, but misunderstood creature had to be put down. It was coming to the coast and it was destroying everything, I tell you. It was self-defense, we swear.
お母さんを殺しました。お父さんを殺しました。お母さんを殺しました。その手には成長の喜びと一人になった孤独が冷たく握られていました。
With this, we are finally out of the shallow end of Route B, and we're now at the meat and the potatoes, the final arc, where it really deviates from Route A. And it is not going to be fun to cover this because a lot of this is text. And quite frankly, they don't give any audio to this text. So I'm going to do my best VO and give this text some life so that we can all enjoy it together. And then as we're enjoying it together, I will attempt to describe it. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be long. It's going to be tedious. But I'm going to do my best. I find myself in a bizarre memory storage area stretching as far as I can see. It's a maze, a labyrinth, a massive interconnected network. I've never seen anything like this. It must have been created by the machines. So then, what am I doing here? I am 9S, and that's all I can remember. Large portions of my memory may have been destroyed. What if I forget everything? My memories, myself, Okay, calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down. Just follow the emergency manual and execute the memory recovery program. Then, the recovery program begins to fill in the blanks in my memory. They drift back like missing letters, filling out a word. The bunker, Tubi's plan, a colossal machine lifeform, the last resort missile strike, preservation mode was activated at the moment of the blast. It halted most of the safeties the network had in place. So out of this we find out that 9S is, well, in the network for the machines, and he's trying to get to grips with his new reality as it is. It took a while, but the recovery program managed to restore most of my memories. Most of my memory functions. However, I still can't establish a link to my body. Well, I guess there's nothing else to do but examine the surrounding memory space. It looks like the machines gathered and stored a lot of info in here. It all seems pretty random at first, but on closer inspection, I learn how it's all connected. There are a variety of entries such as data on human history and philosophy. But what's really strange are the records of machines stored next to those. In the politics category, there are records of machines' own governmental endeavors. They tried all sorts of things. Absolute monarchies, republics, democracies, and that wasn't all. They also engaged in other scholarly pursuits such as philosophy, mathematics, science, and social criticism. It's like the network was copying every possible human behavior and discipline, almost as if. So we're starting to get a bit of the history of the machines, quote-unquote machines, and it is confusing to 9S. as he continues to dig deeper and deeper into the memory space. I dive deeper into the records. I can find no indication of machines creating new cultures or values. They only imitate human behavior. The strange thing is, if a unit fails, it fails in the exact same way the next time. For example, if a machine forms a dictatorship that eventually collapses, it won't try a new type of government, it just forms a new dictatorship. Or if it plants crops and they die, it just tries the same thing again. And again. And again. And again. They keep performing the same behaviors. They don't ever learn. When it comes to combat, the machines show overwhelming adaptive behavior and evolutionary speed. So why do they insist on imitating humanity? And more specifically, why do they imitate their failures? It's almost as if the objective is failure itself. I sense a change in the data, some kind of movement. I hone my perception, hold my breath. I hear something, a distant voice. I announce all androids. There's something there, something clearly intelligent. I announce to all androids. The words shimmer into focus. The voice grows clear in my mind. It is Adam, a machine made in the image of man. We machine life forms have evolved, he says. We made war, learned, grew, and thus we gain new consciousness. Indeed, it is as if we are a new form of existence has been born. Lies, nothing but lies, lies from mere machines. Adam laughs. And yet you androids claim to be alive. How very odd. You are but puppets who lack even your own free will. No, you're wrong. His words flow into me as if they were poured into my ear. How am I wrong, boy? I'm where... Perhaps you have a will after all. Perhaps you have desires. Now you see, boy, the true meaning of life is hatred. You're wrong. A vile hatred slumbers in the depths of your heart. You're wrong. The more you try to hide it, the more the darkness grows. Wrong! 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 All who live are slaves to desire. Such eternal appetites are what give lives meaning. Some seek beauty, others serenity. For me, hatred is the... I'm not like that. Oh, yes, you are. You do not trust anything. You want to destroy everything. You have lost hope in everything. You want to obtain everything. You want to be loved by all. You're thinking about how much you want to beyond you. Reality is stained by lies. Stop it. Hatred pouring into you. You're wrong. Damn it. Overflowing desire. I'm not like you. Your true self. And with this, we get a final picture show.
兄弟でした。ある機械にとっての宝物は美しさでした。そしてある機械にとっての宝物は憎悪でした。
And with that, we are reunited with 2B. And Adam is slain. But not without shaking 9S's psyche in more ways than he can probably fathom at the time. 9S no longer trusts anything, but he wants everything. Has 9S been corrupted by the network? Or is he still maintaining his own consciousness? Only time will tell. We'll all find out soon.
9S 帰ろう 9S
After getting saved by 2B, we return to the bunker for repairs, and we have to perform a final self-scan. Through doing this, we find we have no irregularities with our own code. But when we try to connect to the server, we're unable to do so. So we go deeper into the server manually, and we come across different files that were being kept hidden. File number 1 talks about your high body storage units. It's very vague, but what it means is there are other bodies in storage for these units. But we'll leave that note for later, and when we go to the other side of the server and we find out about access of the Council of Humanity. And we find out about shipping records to the Council of Humanity, and most of these pods are empty, yet earlier in the earlier in the game, we've seen several pods being launched from Earth to the moon, and from us, the bunker, to the moon. This unlocks a even further server detail, which we open up, and this has actual protections for some reason. And we find out that the Council of Humanity was created alongside with the Yoha unit. After which we get a cryptic message. But this message is what the Prophet machine back on Earth was saying to the other machines. Why is 9S hearing this? It's because he's deeply connected to the network. We awaken, and then we have an emergency that we have to instantly be called to. This emergency is 2B being stuck with those machines that want to become gods. We then go to a terminal to try and help 2B from the bunker by hacking into the machine lifeforms. This is a new hacking minigame, as it is a physical representation in the memory space, as we see the various pillars of the foundry and walls in front of them. We take control of a Inoculus machine and we attempt to find 2B. We see lots of times where there are stronger machines than us, and we hack them to take over their body so we have a stronger shell for ourselves. We then continue through a reverse series that 2B did later on when she tried to escape from this facility. And we have to do this all by playing as machines. As we get deeper, we find lots of other machines fighting each other and trying to escape and block our path. And eventually we come towards a elevator, which we hack to allow 2B to come up the elevator. and we get the reverse shot of, "Hey 2B, it's me, don't shoot." We then tell her that we're going to go deeper into the security of the foundry to open up the door lock so that she can easily escape. Through this, we find some irregular messages in memory space, and these are the Project Gestalt reports. We've been collecting a few of these throughout our travels, but this is the first time I'm actually going to talk about them, because there are given quite a few of them here. So in this area we get Gestalt Report 2 and 3. In Gestalt Report number 2, we find out that there is many protests to the spiritual preservation method, which is the Gestalt project. And they decide that they're going to use propaganda to prevent people from rejecting the plans of the Project Gestalt. In report number 3, we find out that the laboratories with the basic technology of the replicant systems are expected to be completed by the end of August, which means they are coming along quite fast, and they're going to be holding clinical trials soon. Apparently this is going to be a tremendous leap forward for Project Gestalt. Now we're going to take a moment here to speed ahead, and we're going to read even more of these Project Gestalts. So we have 6, 8 and 10 in our arsenal, so let's start with number 6. Today's committee meeting was cancelled due to absence of majority of members. Contact the network for urgent absences is to be confirmed at a later date. Now what does this mean? It means that there is an emergency and they need everyone to show up because something either has gone wrong or is going wrong. In report number 8, we find out that Project Gestalt is continuing to go ahead even with these problems, and they're getting approval in countries across the world. They believe that they can get the final safety of the final systems all up to date by the time that the rollout is commencing. They also put in clauses to prevent leaks of information and to punish people that do so with Countermeasure C. In Gestalt Report number 10, this is the last one that we have received troubling reports from multiple administration zones that the replicants have started to behave as if they have developed a sense of self. It is currently under investigation what implications this might have for Project Gestalt as a whole, as other disclosed matters have already been directed to the Administration Union. They have been omitted here. So what's this all mean? It means that humanity is attempting to upload their consciousness to a network, and they've also been creating replicants to be false bodies to maybe get humanity uploaded back to. But these false bodies have been gaining consciousness of themselves and controlling themselves, and they are very concerned and worried about this. Back to 2B and our hacking, we come to a massive room, and we get told that this is the giant Goliath that 2B is fighting. And we notice that this is a very similar room to what we're fighting the Goliath in as 2B. It has 2 bridges from either side, and they both get closed up as we enter, much like what happened to 2B. So obviously we're hacking into the Goliath here to reduce its power so that 2B can fight the Goliath without the EMP shielding, and once we disable it, we get the awesome cutscene of 2B destroying the Goliath again. And we get our final storybook of the robots wishing to be freed from their yoke of iron.
預言者は言う。ああ、大地の慈悲を。ああ、天上の喜びを。鉄のくびきから解き放たれ、私たちの魂は救済されるだろう。永遠に。永遠に。
Returning to the bunker, we then confront the commander about what we found in the research logs. The commander confirms our suspicions, and we find out the revelation that mankind is in fact dead. We get the second revelation that the humans were already extinct when the aliens arrived on Earth. The commander gives us a memory chip about the greater details of what happened. This is apparently top secret. We are given a choice Do we expose the truth to everyone, especially 2B, or do we remain silent and continue with the lie? So let's talk about these top secret files. Project Yohai, the top secret file. Project Yohai is a comprehensive information project intended to enhance android morale. This entry details the circumstances that led to its approval, as well as the information related to operations conducted during its individual phases. Note, this document is marked with Level S security confidentiality and should not be disclosed to any Yohai personnel save for the commander. Human extinction. Following the collapse of Project Gestalt around 3400 CE, the remaining androids searched for a way to revive humanity, but they were unable to discover an answer. Humans went extinct roughly around 4200 CE. Afterwards, the genes of Gestalts and structural information remaining to the replicant records were recorded. Afterwards, the genes of the Gestalts and structural information of the remaining replicants were recorded and sent to storage facility on the moon. Loss of android morale. News of humanity's execution was meant to be a closely guarded secret, but rumors of the event eventually began to leak out. Having lost the one thing that they were programmed to protect, android morale began a precipitous decline. Concerned by this turn of events, Command designed Project Yohai as a means to lift android spirit. Project Lunar Server. The first stage of this project was spreading word among the resistance groups that humanity was in fact not dead. They were remaining remnants had been sent to the moon and escaped. This deception was supported by installing a communication server on the lunar surface to send regular transmissions. Said server was designed to be manned by few maintenance personnel as possible. Establishment of the Yohai Squadron. Through dramatic alterations of the next generation combat unit project that had been proposed at the time, new Yohai models began to be manufactured. Official models were created following the implementation of data acquired from an experimental squadron, and were then deployed to all regions. Certain members of the Yohai operations staff, however, were informed of the full scope of their project. These units were tasked to operate and protect the server on the moon, and this was the top secret Yohai folder. So now we know everything, and by we mean 9S. 2B is still in the dark at this stage. So 9S now has the choice of continuing this fight against the machines and the aliens and whatever other falsehoods happen to be in this world, or to just let go. And the only thing that spurs our hero onwards is the fact that 2B remains on Earth and is fighting for her life. During this time, we also get the final table scene with Eve. Now this is a scene we've seen in Route A, but I did not put it in the review because it wasn't important. I'm now going to talk about all of the table scenes that are shown in Route B, because there are quite a few of them, and seeing as we're finally being shown in the final one, it might as well start talking about the ones that I haven't talked about. The very first table scene happens very shortly after Adam and Eve's conception, where they are sitting at a long table on either side, where Adam is reading a book and Eve is attempting to eat an apple. He remarks that, "Why are we wearing clothes? It's a hassle." Adam replies, revealing his one genitalia was seen as problematic. Eve then questions, "Why are we attempting to eat fruit?" Adam replies that our data suggests that mankind gained great intelligence from consuming apples. This is obviously a reference to Genesis and the Garden of Eden. Eve then goes, "Alright, I'll eat this apple if we can play for a bit after we finish eating." Adam agrees, and then Eve is very happy. Eve revolves around playing with his brother. He doesn't quite care about fighting, he enjoys it, but more than anything, he just wants to be with his brother. The next table scene we get is Adam and Eve reading a book. Eve questions, "Why are we reading this book? I could just have all this information in the network download into my consciousness, so why are we reading it the slow way?" Eve then says, "We should play after we finish reading." Adam says, "Okay, but only after we're finished." Eve gets happy and says he's going extra hard to finish reading this book. Again, this shows that Eve just wants to play with Adam, and Adam seems to be more interested in gaining further knowledge of his own body and his own self through philosophy and various other means. But he doesn't wish to gain this information instantaneously, so that way he can consume the knowledge in the heart. Which brings us to the final table scene, where it is just Eve, and he is very upset his brother's dead, and he swears, "I will kill them. I will kill them all." 9S is then contemplating that the human race is gone in his room, when all of a sudden, an emergency blares out. 9S rushes to his flight unit and flies down to Earth. While flying down to Earth, he has quite a few good shots of the Earth as he's entering the atmosphere. While flying to 2B's aid, he comes into contact with a Goliath flyer. This is remarkably easy to kill because we are quite over leveled at this point, because we've done all the side missions. After beating the Goliath flyer, we crash into the ball, saving 2B like we did in Route A, and we then fight from this side to help 2B. It continues like normal until we get to the final confrontation with Eve again. Even at the start of this fight is relatively the same, until we decide that we need to hack into Eve to shut him down. When we enter this hacking realm, it is very different. It is a created space of the pit that we are currently in, and we are fighting Eve, who is screaming every time we attack him. We continue deeper and deeper as we fight Eve in this memory space, in this data space, until we come across a house. And in this house is a memory of Eve and Adam. Eve pleads with Adam that we should go somewhere together and live our days quiet. He doesn't dislike fighting, but he dislikes seeing his brother in pain more. We then fade into white and we return to when Eve starts losing control and we punch Eve with our robotic arm. We are then both in a damaged state and we have to finish off Eve with just our pod guns, and then when we are even furtherly damaged we continue beating up Eve with our pod guns, and the ending plays out just as it did before, including the corruption of 9S. Except for when 2B approaches 9S in order to finish 9S off, there are two mysterious spirits standing by, both wearing red dresses and red shoes with grey/black hair. Who are these two intruders in this delicate moment? We do not know. And as it ended before, it ends again with 9S returning to the giant robot, and the cutscene and the credits roll. So that's Route B. I think it's different to Route A, of course. It could be considered better in some ways, worse in others, but ultimately it's not a huge deviation from what happened in Route A. If you haven't played Nier Automata, you should play it. But what's this? The credits have ended and we're able to play 2B again? What's going on here? Let's watch. Nines has his body back and he is going to tell us what we need to know.
2B 待ってたよ。 これを渡しておく。トゥビー。いや、なんでもない。気をつけて。
予定されていた準備行動完了。最終確認。自室に配備された装備。
We are told to confirm our equipment in our private quarters. We are being sent out on another mission. What is this final mission? What is Route C?
思い返せ、故郷を奪われた苦しみを。我々は諦めはしない。海を、空を、大地を、おぞましき機械生命体に奪われた地球を取り戻す。本作戦の成功をもって今ここでこの戦争を終わらせるのだ。人類に栄光あれ。
Meaningless code, childhood's end. I'll see you guys in the next video. G'day.